Okay, here we go.
How
How
can
to
I
turn,
help?
well, we're turning industrial waste into web. This is a bad idea. How to turn, we're talking today, Dan, about how to turn industrial waste into, drum roll please,
Revenue.
revenue stream without new equipment costs. All right?
All right,
Are you
let's
excited?
do it. Sure.
All right. This is where,
I'm happy to answer any questions you have, sir.
let's talk about it because I have notes.
Sure.
All right. I think this is a reframe nobody takes. Most industrial operators treat waste disposal as a fixed cost of doing business, something to minimize, not monetize. At what point did you, Dan Kelly, start seeing that assumption as the real problem? And what does it tell you about how the entire industry or industries have been leaving money on the table?
Well, quite frankly, it wasn't just me that saw this problem. It was many people on the ADAR team, number one.
Yep.
And two, this is an industry-wide problem that no one really likes to talk about because it requires change. And one of the reasons that there has not been any innovation within the disposal market, let's call it the wet waste stream processing market, is because they have this concept that they're there. There's the waste bins. There's this concept that it requires large capex purchases, etc. And quite frankly, it's easier, especially in these industries, to just keep things as they will, as they are, right? It
Mm.
reminds me a lot of the government when I worked for the government, right? So, quite frankly, why I'm passionate about it is because this is my fourth business and it's my last business. This is the big one.
Yeah.
This is the only business in which I feel truly that I'm making a big impact for the world, not just for the bottom lines of large corporates. And quite frankly, what I can tell you right now is that waste, as I see it, is just a resource that you have not figured out how to sell yet. And it requires a paradigm shift for people to think about it a little bit differently.
Mm.
And so, but the problem comes into the semantics that waste has always been just a cost center inside of these large and small companies. It doesn't matter. It's always just a cost center. And disposal itself has a line item on the budget. And quite frankly, historically, no one gets promoted for rethinking how do we dispose stuff.
Mm.
And it really is a missing opportunity on the balance sheet to move something from what I call the middle of the balance sheet to the top from a revenue standpoint. And so industries historically have been leaving billions on the table,
Mm.
not because they lack innovation, but quite frankly, because no one has been motivated historically to convert an expense to a revenue stream. And that's changing in today's world, but it was not always the case over the last 100 years.
Interesting. Um, let's talk about how or what disposal actually costs.
I like this.
Yeah.
I liked it. Now, what are you drinking over there?
It's not McAllen. Yeah, no, no, no. Hold on. Oh, Basil Hayden. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Basil Hayden.
Yeah. God,
That's a yep, that's a good one.
it's just
Yep.
smooth. It's smooth.
It's smooth. Yeah.
I can smell your barrel from over here. You messed up my flow. I was
I
taking a drink. I was entering the question, taking a sip, and then I was going to get into it. And you messed it up.
tell me about to ask me the question again. Go
I'm not,
ahead.
no. Let's talk about, well, I'm not drinking again. I'm a gentleman. What disposal actually costs. All right. So when you
Yeah.
get an industrial operator, let's say to fully account for what their waste stream is costing them. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like disposal fees, hauling, compliance, liability, downtime, you name it, right? Like what number do they usually arrive at, and how does that compare to what they thought they were spending?
Great question. I will tell you that most people don't actually know what they're spending. And it's not for the lack of trying, they just don't actually calculate. all of the other hidden costs that come into disposing something. So in reality, they think they're spending X, which is largely the disposal invoice, meaning they get it from a third party to literally take it away and dispose it. That's their disposal cost. The reality is that their actual cost is usually what we are finding just with real customers is 3 to 5 times what they think.
Okay.
And because they're just counting the disposal invoice themselves, they largely miss the regulatory compliance, liability exposure, the downtime, the hauling cost, the opportunity cost for material itself, the energy use, et cetera, right? But one thing I want to say is usually the labor cost is a hidden item that people don't think about. The
Mm.
amount of time it takes literally to move product, especially heavy wet product
Yeah.
from point A to point B, it's huge. And I commonly give the example, especially for people that don't come from the industrial sector or agriculture sector. I talk about chickens actually. And so poultry waste, if you think of a chicken, 35% of that chicken is actually wet waste. So people typically buy chickens in the store, the chicken breasts, etc., legs, whatever. But 35% is the blood, guts,
Yeah.
the all the stuff you can't use and sell.
Yeah. That's
That
not.
is not the blood and guts. That
It's
is not,
it's
that
all.
is a chicken leg.
It's all I got. It's all I got.
I think that might be a turkey leg, but that's fine. Yeah,
Go
no
ahead,
problem.
as you were.
Anyway, using that as a base case example, because people understand it, what we know by third-party research, this is not us saying this is third-party research saying it on average costs $90 a ton to throw away that 35% of that chicken, right? And the issue is that there's so much more economical ways to use that chicken than just throwing it away. Now, what I mean by throwing it away for people that are in the industry, I don't mean always taking it to the landfill. I'm talking about your sunk costs of transporting it, collecting it, transporting it, and bringing it to hog farms or whatnot to do actual renderings.
Okay.
So this is $90 a ton, even if you are creating an upcycled material. That is the average. And the opportunity here, quite frankly, is to bring our technology directly to the source of the waste and eliminate that $90 a ton expense and convert it into a revenue stream.
Interesting. Okay. So what about like the way these businesses are structured, like budgeting, procurement, ops? Is the do those does that structure actively discourage anyone from rethinking a waste stream that's been managed the same way for decades? Like industrial operators haven't like didn't operate or arrive at this situation by accident, obviously.
Well, yeah, true. And it largely gets into a situation, like I said before, nobody gets fired for renewing the disposal contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just what they've done forever, and it is what it is. And typically, they're very long-lasting contracts within rural areas, and that creates very long-standing relationships, which are important in their own right, right?
Mhm.
But part of the problem is actually the foundational makeup of this entire waste to value equation. Um, when you think of large corporations have thousands and thousands of employees. The bottom line is you've got three different verticals of employee base inside of large corporations that are all part of this. Procurement, purchasing, strategic sourcing, whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
That's my own personal background on the private sector side.
Yep.
They own the disposal contract. Why? They want to get the lowest rate, best value, blah, blah, blah. Right? Well, operations owns the throughput. They're the ones that actually creating the waste themselves, right? So they got the waste creation. Procurement owns the contract, and finance owns the capex budget. They own the budgets for all. Unfortunately, how the natural makeup of these corporations are is that you've got three disparate verticals of employee base that are all working to their own drummer, if you will.
Yeah.
And no one's actually looking at the full waste to value equation.
Hmm.
And like I said before, part of the other issue is that the incumbent vendors, and I'm not just talking about the haulers, people that are hauling away trash. I'm talking about actually the thermal dryers. You could say the competition for ADAR,
Okay.
the majors here that use the drum dryers, et cetera, and the landfill operators, right? They've done this for 100 years. When you've done this for 100 years, the entire process makes it feel like a utility bill. And when it feels like a utility bill, it's something you just pay.
Yeah.
Do you look at your gas bill every time you get a gas bill? I know I don't. Maybe I should, but I certainly don't. I
That's
don't look at it.
that's
It
right.
just comes out of my checking account.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue is that this is an invisible expense sometimes to corporations because it's just understood as a sunk cost.
Yeah. So there's a reframe then, like it's feedstock, not waste. Like, so walk us through the mental model shift that has to happen before an industrial operator can start seeing their waste stream as a revenue opportunity. And then separately, like what does that shift require and what usually has to break before a company is willing to make it?
Well, it's actually what you said is the key difference. Actually, the organization needs to stop calling it waste
Yeah, reframing.
and actually call it feedstock.
Yeah, okay.
And when they do that, that sets off a step change, fundamental difference in how they view that material. So it's actually more semantic than it is operational.
Okay.
So if you start calling it an input into a net new material, net new product versus simply a disposal problem, it actually makes the organization ask different questions.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I view ADAR's role at a fundamental level to make that conversation economically viable because historical technology today has not enabled that to be possible.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this in previous episodes. The primary reason is that heat kills nutrient value and is extremely expensive and clunky, et cetera.
Mm.
And so it allows our customers to enable a net new revenue stream by putting again, a waste into a feedstock that already has a market because they are craving for that nutrient value.
Yeah. Well, okay, good segue because I think one of the more it's a counterintuitive claims in this space is that like operators can begin recovering value from waste without a major capital outlay. It's going to cost. Like, how does that work in practice? What does the deployment model actually look like, and why is the entry point lower than most operators would expect?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about this, and every pitch competition that we've won, I have people's eyes open up with this statement, and it's because I tell people because people think of clean tech, people think of deep tech, all these pieces where you're using a physical good or hardware to create an outcome, right? They think of you as a hardware company. The problem with hardware companies is that number one, it's very hard to get funding. Number two, it's very hard to create and maintain a sustainable customer relationship because it's a one-time sell and you're done. Minus maybe a maintenance contract, et cetera. Right? And three, it's very slow and clunky and very expensive, right? And so this is not an investor conversation, but
Yeah.
I would say it's, on a services business, you can demand a 10x multiple versus a hardware company, you can 3x at most,
Yeah.
right? But this is about the customer, right? So what we say is we bring the equipment, you bring the waste stream. And what I call that is infrastructure as a service. And there are two primary models in which this ultimately works for our customer. Number one, they could enter into a 5-year lease. So it's not a capex.
Yeah.
We're plugging directly into their operational budget already. Or number two, they can charge us by ton of usage. Either way, it's an OpEx expense.
Yeah.
And either way, we're going after this where we are creating net savings for a customer regardless of the net new revenue streams that they can make with the product value. We're going at it with a customer of net savings against their OpEx budget today. And we're being very, very successful in those conversations, and it's really exciting. So, again, we're not asking people to buy a machine.
Sure.
We're asking them to buy an outcome.
Yeah.
And And this is the reason that we've got 60 plus companies within our backlog. Um, and we get 6 to 8 new leads a week.
Yeah. So interesting. So what about an industrial operator who's never thought about their waste stream as an output with downstream value? Like what are the actual end products or revenue pathways that become accessible once you change how the material is processed? And what does that do to their unit economics?
Well, um, here's how I describe it very briefly. We create up to 90% cost savings just on that disposal piece. And we create, which is what I just talked about,
Yep.
and we create 10x new revenue opportunities, which is that increased value from the nutrient value preservation. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
And the most difficult thing when you talk about ADAR is people don't understand actually how to put ADAR in a box, if you will. You know,
Mhm.
how do you, where do you, what product do you make? I get that a lot, right?
Yeah,
Like, we don't make a product, our customers make a product. We simply make our customers more efficient,
sure.
effective. And so, again, if you think of the chicken waste example, because people understand that one, you know, when you can convert a $90 a ton expense, chickens, and you can convert that $90 a ton expense to a 5,000 to 15 or $25,000 a ton revenue stream, ranging from pet food to nutraceuticals. We can
Hmm.
talk about that later if you want.
Sure.
That is an absolute game changer for the marketplace. And so you're talking about spending from $3 billion dollars as an industry to making $180 billion dollars in revenue. Obviously, this is a game changer. So the bottom line is what I describe it as. The difference is that we're creating superfoods,
Sure.
and superfoods don't have to just be for humans. They can be, but they can be for animals and industry. And
Hmm.
when you think industry, think of biofuels.
Yeah.
Think of creating sustainable aviation fuels.
Yeah. SAFs.
SAS, SAF,
SAF.
SAF, which just as we're recording this interview,
Yeah.
I was informed by part of my external team that Delta, which was what I fly all over the world, Delta just committed 10% of their fuel will be SAF by 2030.
That's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. You know why too? Because the American airlines are not being pushed to do it. They're choosing to do it. The European airlines are forced to do it by regulation. And so there's a push-pull action here, right?
Waterfall impact will be
Yes.
imminent, I'm sure. Very interesting. Okay. Well, let's talk about the risk profile. Oh, by the way, before we do that, when I hovered my mouse over the emoji, it said poultry leg for the record. All right.
Thank
So,
you.
uh-huh.
Was it the left or right leg?
It didn't say it.
I think left leg.
Feedback. Okay. Operators considering a change to how they handle waste, I think are often more worried about what could go wrong than right. Like what are the real risks in this transition and does the economics case hold up in even a conservative scenario?
So it's a great question. I will tell you that in every model that we've
Thank you, by the
worked
way.
on,
Thank you for that
you're
compliment.
welcome. It was a great question, actually. Made me think for a second. I'll tell you that the in every model that we have worked with our customers on in Europe, Africa, Australia, Japan, and North America and South America, to be specific.
Yeah.
The when we create stress test models, meaning we create economic benefit analysis
Yep.
of this, the worst case stress test model still wins
That's
every time.
that's compelling.
It- yeah, it had, and um, so the real risk that we are working through right now, and it's actually has to do with one of my acquisitions that I made for a complementary technology.
Yeah.
The real risk is actually the integration risk when we are being integrated by our customer instead of a large production line.
Yeah, correct.
Meaning they're pushing product and we cannot be a bottleneck
Yeah.
for people that don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And And so we've worked through that, and this is why our primary R&D is to increase our throughput per hour and also make our machines modular, which they are now, which I'm very proud of. So,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is because we're shifting the commercial model from the, albeit let's call it our competitors,
Yeah.
from the $5 to $15 million one-time capex purchase
Mm,
to a monthly fee. We're not asking our customers to take a risk on buying a capex piece of equipment that if it doesn't work for whatever reason out of our control, that they're going to be stuck with this capex equipment just rotting there. And I've seen this. I literally have seen this around the world. People have invited me all around the world to go in their warehouse. I mean, these are big, big companies.
yeah.
We keep all of our clients confidential,
Yeah.
but they have a graveyard. It's called the graveyard inside of these large, and they don't know what to do with it. They can't sell it. They can't, we know. So it literally just rots there for parts. That validated for me
Yeah.
without question that we are an as service company, which benefits us and it benefits the customer. Simple as that. And so, because we're not asking people to buy a depreciating asset and we're simply asking people to make this OpEx expense, quite frankly, I'm trying to eliminate that risk in people's mind of these big companies that are trying to plug us in the middle.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the regulatory tailwinds
Mm,
in not only EU, which the EU delegation is coming to visit me here in a few days, but also the US, North America, Asia. Quite frankly, all the pressure that's coming down here, doing nothing is becoming actually a riskier choice than actually trying something new.
yeah. The tailwinds are running in your direction.
I would say so,
Yeah.
yes. And it's not just for ADAR to solve.
Regulatory speaking.
Regulatory,
Yeah.
yeah. Not just for ADAR to solve,
Yeah.
but we're a piece of the puzzle.
All right.
Yes.
So competitively speaking, in a way, like you've seen a wide range of industrial operators respond to the concept. So like what separates the ones who move quickly from the ones who don't, and what is the profile of an early mover? Like tell you about where the market's actually forming.
Yeah. The the early movers, without question, are the individuals that have the closest connection to that waste to value equation. I was talking about how the fundamental problem in large corporations is that there's not one person.
Mm,
Well, quite frankly, the CFO,
yeah.
if you have a very proactive CFO or people that work for him or her, that is where we are seeing the greatest amount of traction. And people that know how to quantify and qualify the value of their byproducts. Some people call it byproducts versus a
Yeah.
waste stream. Specifically in the food space, you call it a byproduct,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
And so that mid to large operator that has an existing disposal pain, meaning, quite frankly, speaking of our current customer, they have a product that they know has a huge amount of value, but they can't find technology today to process it into something that's powder that can upcycle it without losing nutrient value.
yeah.
Why? Because it simply doesn't exist. And those are the people that are making the first moves. And that is the reason that we have so much interest in the food, feed, and fiber space. I call that as a, quite frankly, as a segment.
Yeah.
And we look at the four segments. That's the reason we have so much demand because they are so in tune with what their operating costs are, typically because their margins are lower,
Mm,
actually. Um, so that's number one. And two, just large companies that have strong sustainability commitments,
okay.
where they can make this a carbon and ESG story.
Yeah.
That's a quick win.
Yeah, but not to be understated, like the those commitments, are a huge opening and
But
opportunity.
they're huge, yeah. And I would say that this is obvious. I'm not telling anyone, people don't know that, Europe is ahead of North America on this without question. It has been for 10 years, on the commitments. But quite frankly, North America is ahead on scale.
Okay.
I mean, quite frankly, by 10x.
All right.
So there's a push-pull happening here as well. And the bottom line, though, is North America is catching up to this demand. And part of it has to do with their customers are demanding it.
All right, bigger picture, broader thesis, if you will. If the waste to revenue model scales the way you believe it will, like what does that mean for how industrial businesses think about their dare I say, like their entire operating model, not just their disposal line, but the fundamental relationship between production, byproduct, like you said, and value recovery.
It it's a good question. It primarily has to do with instead of talking about waste minimization,
Yeah,
aka how do we throw stuff away cheaper or we create less waste, right? Which is a fine conversation to have, of course. The conversation changes of how do we actually convert that waste into a net new revenue stream?
yeah,
It's as simple as that. How do we create a profit center from something that we threw away or that we just diverted? The bottom line is we are opening up such net new revenue streams, literally 10x revenue streams. Even if they're selling the product today
Hmm.
as a byproduct, they can demand, our customers can demand 10x net new revenue. Why? Because the nutrient value is not degraded. And so I would say that waste is no longer the end of the value chain. It's actually just a loop back into it, which is the circular economy, if you
yeah.
will.
Very good. That was a good close.
Well, it's the truth.
Yeah. Dan, I want to thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Hold on a second.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
I'll give myself one too. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dan Kelly, I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you later.